is, I said what I said, and who me? Yes, you. Now, the famous phrase comes from the great Nene Leakes. Those of you who watch TV or just might know a little bit of current, what can I say, a pop culture. And she was saying it in a way of, you know, I'm not going to repeat myself. I meant what I said. So we walk around say it all the time when you're getting somebody told or whatever. I said what I said. And that means I meant what I said. And then when you're a kid, you used to say, you know, no take backs. So she's not taking back what she said. She's going to stand on it because that's what she believes. So in this, I found it really interesting that this young man, Gideon, was working when the Lord came and spoke to him. Well, the angel of the Lord spoke to him, the messenger. And he didn't have a request before the Lord, so to speak. He wasn't asking of anything. He was working, just working, going along. And will you pull it back up, the scripture back up for me? And what was really interesting was that he didn't have to work. This man actually had servants. And so he was sitting there working. He didn't send no one else to do his work. There's many different reasons why he was using the wine press versus trying out wheat like they normally do, but using ox, you know, on a mill. Some people say that, you know, he was doing it little by little so he could hide it from the Midians, you know, so he could put it away. And some people was just saying that he was doing it little by little because he only had a little work to do. So nevertheless, it doesn't matter why he was using the wine press, but he was working and he was using the wine press when the angel appeared. And when it says, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor. Keep going for me. And Gideon said to him, please, Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened? Now, how many of you have heard the voice of the Lord, have received a promise, and then as soon as you received instruction, your first question is, well, if you're real, why do I feel like this? If you're real, why am I going through this current situation? If you're real, why did I have to grow up in the household? Or why did I have to have the experiences that I had? If you are real. And he says, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? Now, I have to pause because he was his father worshiped Baal. So even though he had come and he is recounting, and from somewhere he heard these stories, I can't tell you that his father told him to him, because his father worshiped a false god, an idol god, another god. He did not worship the Lord. So he heard these stories from somewhere. So I don't know if the older people in the community had, you know, he had heard, but they had lived off of the testament that the Lord had helped them escape from Israel. Now, this is long, you know, some generations on down. The people had strayed. Now, the people who once knew the full power of God and experienced his strength and experienced him making a way out of no way, walking across on dry ground, and then their enemies were defeated behind them. So basically, they didn't have to keep running. They still, at some point, strayed away. Now, some of us have come from families that may have strayed away. They once knew the strength of God. They once knew the power. Some of you have heard many times about different things that God has done, but you've only heard, you haven't witnessed. Gideon had heard, but he hadn't witnessed yet. So at this time, the Lord had chose him to show his strength. And so as he said, Lord, if you're real, why am I going through this? Why have we not seen you? And then he said, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken and given us into the hand of Midian. They were scared for their lives because they were, the Midianites were, trying to control them, and they were not the free people that they once were. Now, this is because they had chose, so the Lord had given them over. Keep going for me. The Lord had given them over, so they were in bondage. They weren't free. They weren't expressive people. They weren't living in awe that the Lord had once showed them. And the Lord turned to him and said, go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do not I send you? When you receive instruction, I remember growing up as a kid, one of the worst things you could do for a parent when they told you what to do is say, why? Which we do all the time with God. The Lord gave us instruction on what to do. Our first question is why? Why? And the Lord said, did I not tell you to go? Why is that not enough for us when the Lord has given us permission and when the Lord has given us okay? Why are we always looking for reassurance from other people or other things? When God gave you the promise, he gave it to you. Now, Singleton is a great individual, but I can't ask him about what God told me. Because if he told me, his interpretation would be totally different. I can't ask Sister April. Now, it's one thing to discuss things. It's one thing just to, shoot the breeze with somebody, or I just want to bounce this off of you. You might have an idea. You might be able to add to it, which you have to watch, because some people add to it and it'll turn into something else, and then you're mad because it didn't happen the way that God said. Well, because you didn't do it the way God said. You did it the way, Sister April had great ideas. And it ain't to take away from, you know what I'm saying? But you started leaning on Sister April versus leaning on what God told you to do. So he said, do not I send you? And he said to him, please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. So he started talking down on himself immediately. He started doubting that he was even worthy, and yes, it might be a sign of being humble, but you have to watch out, because sometimes you're so humble, you don't talk yourself out of a blessing. Now, this is not the same thing as being humble and not having confidence in what the Lord has told you to do. Being humble means that you find that, the privilege that it is, and you are appreciative that the Lord has chosen you. And you may know in your heart or feel that you're unworthy, but when he gave you that stamp, that meant that's all you need. Don't sit there and concentrate on where you come from and what you don't have. And I can attest, when the Lord had told me, when the Lord had asked me to be in this position, the first thing I said was, who me? Lord, I am not worthy. The promise that the Lord gave me was, you take care of my people and I take care of you. So with that, yes, there are many things that I ask from time to time. What does that mean? Just do it. Just do the assignment. Do the work. Don't have so many questions. Don't get caught up in being confused on, Lord, how can I be a great father? I didn't have a father. How can I be a great mother? My mother, she's out there in the street. She's running around. She's got issues. I am, and, Gideon was the youngest of his siblings. He said, I am the least in my father's house. And in that day, it had an order. You know, it went from the oldest on down. So, Lord, you bypassed all of my siblings and came straight to me. That is God's decision. Don't get worried about when you up for a promotion. God, you bypassed all of those who have all kind of credentials. God, you bypassed all of those who have been here for years. He chose you. He chose you to be the example. He chose you to be the one that directs the people and to save and to be a light. Gideon was the one who was chosen to free the people out of the hands of Midian. Now, what's so interesting is you have to understand that as you are going along, can you pull the scripture back up for me? As you are going along, just keep it up and we'll be all right. As you are going along, you cannot get confused or get hesitant in your direction and what the Lord has told you to do. Don't get so caught up in being distracted on, where you come from and what it looks like, and what you might not even know directly what you are going to, but the mission is just to go. The idea is just to go and just to do it. Attack the mission. Can you go to the next scripture for me, please? Attack the mission and go forward. And the Lord turned to him and said, go in the might of yours, save Israel from the hand of Midian. Go, keep going, Ari, for me. And Gideon built the altar there to the Lord and called it the place. To this day it is still at Ophrah and belongs to the Abrazites. Now this is on down in verse 24. Those of you who might not know the story, just let me fill you in. As he was going, he asked the Lord, the angel, not to leave because he wanted to make a sacrifice. And he cooked some meat, he made a broth, and some unleavened bread. And he presented it, and it went up in a flame. It just got consumed in a flame. So that's where he made this altar. And that's where he honored this place. Sometimes when you're on your path and the Lord has worked a miracle for you, you need to make an altar and honor that place. You need to mark that spot. You need to be grateful. And so many times when you're going along, you need reassurance. It's okay that once you've asked the Lord and you've seen him perform a miracle, be excited about that and stay there and honor it. Now, don't get stuck. Just build your altar. Just if your altar is a place where you write it down, if your altar is a place where you testify, just do that and keep moving. Don't get distracted. And you also have to remember that as you are going along, God, if you need a time, if you need to be reassured, God will do that for you. And I don't have it up here, but if you keep going and you keep reading, it even got to the place where Gideon had to be reassured, but he also had to remember to repeat and speak the promise. So you have to know that as you are going along, when you get distracted or when you feel down, repeat the promise. That's why it is important when the voice of the Lord speaks to you initially, write it down, make note of it, because things come along that will try to snatch that from you. So you have to remember to hold on to that and keep hold of that. And as Gideon was going along and he got reassured, and even after he received instruction, after he received instruction, he had to remember, to keep going. Excuse me, one moment. All right. But as Gideon was going along, and he had to remember to keep going, and he received instruction and reassurance, he even got doubtful at one time, and he asked the Lord, if you are real, I need you to perform this for me. Yeah. So he laid his fleece out, and he asked the Lord, if you are real, when I wake up in the morning, it'll be dew on one side and dry on the other side. Now, some of us are like, well, what does that mean? It meant something to him. Why, the same way you asked the Lord to send you a sign, it doesn't mean anything to someone else. It is the sign that you need so you can be reassured. And when he woke up that morning, surely he wrung it, and the dew, it was wet. So he was like, okay, Lord, you are real. So then he asked one more time and said, basically he reversed it. One time he said, Lord, if you are real, let it be dew on the top and dry on the ground. The other time he said, if you are real, let it be wet on the ground and dry on the top. And surely when he awoke the next morning, it was on. He said, well, Lord, okay, I got it. I'm going. If you keep reading, he still was doubtful even in his going. He believed that God was real, and he was going. He said, Lord, I'm doing this. But then, if you go on to chapter 7, when the Lord shrunk the army, he started out with 32,000. Then the Lord cut it and went down to 10,000. Then the Lord ended up keeping 300. So even with that, the Lord was making a way. He was following the instructions. He was doing what the Lord told him to do. And he still had questions. He still did not know that the Lord was saying, who, me? Yes, you. I said what I said from the beginning, and I am sticking to it. So he went on and he kept going. And he said, Lord, if you are real again, he wanted the Lord to protect him. So the Lord told him to go and basically eavesdrop in on the army. And so when he got there, the army was talking about how strong Gideon was and what the Lord had already provided. So he was in fear, but the people was fearing him because somehow the word has spread that the Lord is coming and I got somebody for you. So that's what I'm saying. When the Lord gives you a promise, the people are not, you don't know what you're supposed to do. Just do it because the Lord is going to send the word that I got somebody coming, and they are coming with might and strength. So Gideon, he got excited about that time because he was like, Lord, you just keep doing it. You keep making a way. So the Lord even told him how to defeat the people. And guess what? When Gideon went on to do the instructions of the Lord, in the end, he didn't even fight. He didn't even fight. The people turned on themselves. They ran and they killed each other. So, when the Lord gives you instruction, don't get caught up in who don't understand it and who is not for you and who is not with you, because the Lord will work that thing out. People will, I'm not saying nobody, I don't want nobody to kill themselves. That's not what I'm saying. But the Lord will work it out in a way to where people can self-destruct on the job. People can self-destruct in organizations. Whatever the case is, when the Lord has told you to go, Pastor Mario talked about the other week, when people are in the places where you're supposed to be. When the Lord gave him that promise and told him to go, now, what may be interesting is that sometimes you might get distracted because you don't know the strength that the Lord has already. You don't know the strength of your bloodline. You don't know the strength of having salvation in God. So you get deterred and you don't know the awesomeness of God. But as Gideon did, keep asking for instruction. Keep asking for reminders. Keep going. Never give up. And remember, if you want instruction, one of the most important things, find yourself working. Find yourself working in the kingdom of God. I'm not talking about, running yourself to death, but if there's a work to do, ask the Lord to help you to do it, and just do it. Gideon wasn't working knowing that God was going to choose him. You cannot manipulate God into making a way for you. You cannot manipulate God into making you the chosen vessel. So many times, you know, people work and they like, oh, I want to be the pastor. When someone tells me they're starting a church, the first thing I always ask them is, why and are you sure? It's not to deter them, but I will give them the real. I will give them the real. And I can give you the real because I have worked and I still work. I will always work. Even if I'm not the assistant pastor and someone else comes along, I will still work because working is what I do. I found it a privilege. Now, the Lord spoke to me while I was working. Now, I wasn't working with the intentions of wanting to be next to Pastor Mario. I wasn't working because, you know, well, I know if you work. Now, I've been an armor bearer. I've been an usher. I've been in the choir. I've been on the junior usher board. I have worked in the culinary committee. I have taught Sunday school. I have driven the bus. And I work. Now, none of that is to, you know, toot my own horn. And I probably could have got up here and sang with the praise team today and came right here and done this because I've done it before. I've ushered, I've sang on the praise team, I've tarried and preached all in one service. That's a whole lot. And most of the time, we only want to clap our hands. Worship is a work. So just find yourself working. Don't do it to get close to anyone. Don't do it looking for any advantages. Don't do it when I tell you, Lady Mel knows the truth. If anyone else had been asked, I still would have worked just as hard. I still would have worked just as hard. That's why I ask people when they tell me, you know, the Lord told me to start a church. Well, okay. All right. What's your plan? Because starting it is not the issue. Starting it is not the issue. And people will tell you that they will be for you. That's why Gideon couldn't have got distracted in asking so many people if the Lord, you know, when the Lord told him to go, if he would have asked people, and again, people would have been like, yes, I'm for you, I'm for you, I'm for you, which the army, I told you in chapter 32 was 32,000. I mean, in chapter 7 was 32,000 originally because people was for him. But as God gave him instruction and God began to weed out the people who said they was for him, that's why you cannot get caught up. And that's why I say the starting it is easy. And when you have your first service, I remember our first service, we had maybe 100 people, if not a little bit more. The next week, we had maybe 25 or 30. And we went hard with our 25 or 30. But that's what I'm saying. So what do you do when the people come against you because you are doing the work? And if you keep reading, going back in chapter 6, when he received what to do originally, he was given instruction to tear down the idol of Baal, to tear it down. He was scared. And he had his comrades, the people that was with him, he had his team. And then when he was scared, he did it at night because he didn't want nobody to see him do it. But what is crazy, the people still knew who did it. The word went around where they said it was Gideon. So when you are doing it, even if you're operating in fear, best believe people still know that you are doing the work. People still know that you are coming. Don't go in fear. You ain't got to hide. I'm not telling you to be arrogant. I'm not telling you to tear nobody down. But go in the strength of the one who sent you. Go in the power of God and do the work. Do the mission. It's not, I'm not saying it's all about building a church or building the four walls. When God has given you something to do, you go do it. It could be starting a nonprofit. It could be a craft, whatever it is that God told you to do. Yes, you, who, me, yes, you. You are the one. You cannot get caught up in nobody supporting you. You cannot get caught up in nobody understanding. You cannot get caught up in people not trusting that God really sent you. If you care, ask the Lord to give them a little reassurance that I'm the one. Ask the Lord to speak to them. If you need the way made, just like Gideon did, ask the Lord so he can open it up so you can walk through. Lord, I am going, I am doing it, and be honest. Yes, in going, you might be fearful. Yes, in going, you might even go trembling, but go. Go towards the promise that God told you to go. Go, and reason why I said it's so important to work and to be working, because even as David was in the field, he was the least of his siblings. He was the youngest. He wasn't even the best in stature. So when the king came, and the story, if you don't know the story of David, when the king came to looking for another, to appoint another king, David was in the field working. He was working so hard, his dad almost forgot where he was. His dad almost forgot that he had a son. He said, I have one more. And so when he came forward, it was said that this is the one. Find yourself working. Find yourself working. I'm saying this because I'm encouraging myself also. I'm not saying just, I mean working, period. There are things that you want. There are things that you believe God has told you that you will possess, and you are going to possess. But no one is going to hand it to you. No one is going to. I just want to testify real quick. I remember when I had lost my job, I was pouting. I'm telling you, those of you who don't know, I was pouting. I was pouting because I was like, Lord, I work for you, I give, I help. I just had a real moment where I just thought, you know, I went on my own, thank you, where I was like, Lord, you know, why? Why? And I pouted so long and so hard that I resisted jobs that I thought was beneath me. You know how people say, when I'm going without, I'll go flip a burger. I thought I was too cute to flip a burger. I thought my resume, now I'm not saying my resume is the greatest of them all, but I thought my resume spoke for itself. I was beyond the burger. Now, when I was 16, I flipped a burger at the country club and enjoyed it. But I felt that I had worked a little hard, you know, that I was above a burger or two. I eat them, well, I used to, but I didn't want to flip them. But I pouted so long and so hard, I ended up on zero with nothing. I thank God for my parents who let me come live with, you know, who I am living with, but they didn't, wasn't hard on me. But I remember one day I was coming out of the house. My mom said, oh, your car's gone. I was like, oh, well, the repo man came. And I'm saying this to say, I pouted so hard and so long that I put myself even in a deeper rut than what I was already in. Now, the promise, you know, that God told me was if I take care of his people, he'll take care of me, but I was adding to that. Meaning, well, Lord, you said you'd take care of me. Now, he didn't say whether I had to work or not. He never spoke that. He never said, Guilluame, you'll never have to work a day in your life. He said, I'll take care of you. Now, the taking care of me could have been flipping burgers in the meantime, between time, until it got better. But I was saying no. So, when Ms. Dalisa came to me with this opportunity to work for industrial cleaning buildings, I had said no so much, and I was in such a rut. I said, Lord, help me, because the next opportunity, I cannot keep saying no. Is the pay great? Nope. Is it humbling? Very much so. Do I pout on the job? At times. That's what I do. At times. Do I turn my music on? And I have to make sure they all out because, you know, you might get a little loud and I don't want no questions. I just let me clean this building, leave me alone, enjoy, you know, let me do what I do. But I'm saying all that to say, when you receive the promise, go for it. Don't get distracted. The Lord did not, the Lord don't speak stuff just to, he's not a, you know how the person who just tells empty lies? A person who just says stuff and you looking them right in the eye like, I don't believe nothing you saying. That is not how God operates. That is not what God does. When he said, I chose you, that meant you and you. You, no matter where you come from, no matter how you feel, no matter what current state, we know Gideon was working, but we don't know that whatever state he was in. We don't know how he was living. Sometimes you get caught up in, Lord, last night I wasn't doing your will. And he said, I chose you. Even after. And I'm just saying, don't get caught up in that. Keep going towards the promise. And God would never, ever, ever go back on his word. It was you yesterday, it was you today, and it's going to be you tomorrow. So keep going. Stay encouraged. Believe God. Believe God for the promise. Believe God. Believe that he will never turn his back on you, especially when you are going in a direction he told you to go. Will it get hard? Yes. Will you get discouraged? At times. But keep going. I can't say it enough. It's okay to ask for reassurance. It is okay. And don't look for reassurance from man because man didn't give you the promise. I've tried that. I did. Asked, expecting, asking, knew no was not going to be the answer. And guess what the answer was? No. Did I get mad? Of course, that's what I do. Get mad. Now, y'all not going to know I'm mad because I know how to conduct myself. I'm not rude. I know how to keep working. I know how to keep loving. Now, I'm saying that because that is a gift in itself, and that's a blessing. Because if I keep loving and I keep working, God's going to make everything all right. And I can keep loving and I can keep working because yet, even though I got upset, even though the no may have hurt my feelings, I can still continue to keep going because my faith was not in that. My faith is in God. My faith is in God. You have to know where your faith is because even while you are running and walking or however you going towards the promise, you will hear a few no's from time to time. You will hear no, I don't believe you from time to time. But guess what? That has nothing to do with what God originally said. The point is, are you going to keep going? Are you going to keep trusting him? Are you going to keep believing him? Or are you going to quit because you heard a few no's? Are you going to quit because your feelings got hurt? Does your feelings being hurt take over the promise of God? Does someone rejecting you nullify what God originally said in the beginning? God's word is still his word. It is still the promise. God said what he said. And he meant every word of it. So stand on his word. Stand on his promise. Continue to keep trusting in him. Continue to keep going. Continue to, and so many times people get caught up in, Lord, when are you going to speak? And the Lord might be asking you, when are you going to work? I cannot make a resume and it could be worded great. You know how some people know how to word something? Like my father is we say a garbage man. but on paper it says something like an industrial engineer. I was like, what? So that's what I'm saying. Your resume could be worded great, but if you don't do no job applications, what does that mean? Or you could be the best cook in the world. The Lord told me, I'm gonna cook. I'm gonna do everything. You know, I'm gonna have a cookbook. But you won't write your recipes down because you think somebody's gonna steal them. It don't make sense. Let's make it work. Come on. Let's do it. Or, you know, Lord, I'm going to be a great designer, but you don't want to draw nothing. Or you don't want to go to the fabrics. Whatever. You don't want to work. Lord, I'm going to counsel people, but you don't like people. Lord, I want to help people, but everybody gets on your nerves. Come on, let's do what we're supposed to do so we can get in a process to go on to receive the promise. Don't get distracted, please, in all of you do. Remember the promise of God. Remember what the Lord told you. Remember that you are great. Remember. That's why it's important to keep your mind stayed on Jesus. That's why it's important when the word says to be of a sober mind. And sometimes we get caught up in thinking that means, oh, don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. No, keep your mind clear. Don't get distracted in gossip. Don't get distracted in what everyone is doing or what even the news is saying, because that can make you not trust God completely. So that's why it's important to keep your mind stayed on Jesus. The word says he will grant you perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. I have to have my mind stayed on him, because if I don't, while I'm cleaning that building and the trash is piled up to the wall, I can easily say, Lord, today's the day I'm walking out. But guess what? You're going to walk out and be back at zero. If Gideon had said, Lord, the army is too great. Lord, the army is too great. And when he saw him, if he had turned around, they would have never been freed. Who is waiting on you to do the promise? Whose promise, whose life is dependent on the promise that God gave you? Whose life is dependent on the instructions for you to follow? Who are you responsible for? Everyone is not responsible for a multitude of people. Some people are responsible for one. But that one could be the person that is going to lead the multitude. But because you wouldn't have faith to follow your instruction to go to the promise and to help free whoever was your promise is led to someone's freedom. The Lord told Gideon, you are the one who is going to free Israel. So when the Lord told you that you are going to be whatever it is or do the work whatever it is, it wasn't just so you will be great. It is for you to free someone else. It is for you to be his example of his strength, his power. Some people haven't seen God move in a long time. Some people have never experienced God, but you the one. It's you. Who, me? Yes, me. You are the one. You are the one. God, there's no takebacks. So even if you have got distracted, even if you have got sidelined by the things that have gone on in life, come back to God. Go and repent. Tell the Lord, it's me. I believe it. I got sidetracked, but I still believe it. I got worried, but I still believe it. Lord, help my unbelief so I can go in the promise and go towards the promise. So please, in all you do, stay encouraged, stay believing God, stay walking in the freedom of God, stay walking towards the promise, stay holding on to God's unchanging hand, stay believing that I am the one. So when the time comes, you can give him all the praise and the glory when the promise is obtained. Because you know nobody did it but God. I'm testify one last time. I'm done. Testify one last time. When I was finishing my class for school, I hadn't taken Spanish in years. I had asked someone to help me. I said, I'll pay somebody to take this class for me. Had I prayed about it? No. I'm telling you the truth. It was just things coming off the top of my head. Like, Lord, I hadn't taken Spanish in maybe 5 years. So, anyway, someone said they would help me. They said, then all of a sudden, maybe a week before the class started, they called me and said, no, I cannot help you. Did I get mad at that person? You know, I felt like a little, you know, but I was all right. Didn't ask the Lord to curse them on that, and I went on. And so, anyway, the Lord helped me. I sat down. It took a long time. I had to translate my answers. I had to write them in English and translate them again. And it took something that's supposed to take you 45 minutes. The assignment took me anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. But I believed the promise. So I kept going. Did I get upset? At one point, yes, I did, and I even quit. And then I asked the Lord to help me. And when I tell you how the Lord worked out that situation, I passed the class. I passed the class with a B. I just knew I failed the class and I was going to take it back over. But when I passed the class with a B, I said, well, Lord, if I had kept working, how great would the promise have been? You know what I mean? But I'm saying to you all, never get distracted. Believe God, no matter what it looks like, no matter how hard it is, continue to believe God. Because you are the one. Who, me? Yes, you. You are the one. When you get up in the morning and you don't feel like it's going all right, look in the mirror if you got one in your room. If you don't, if you got one in the bathroom, wherever, go in the mirror and say, who, me? Yes, you. I am the one. God, I am God's chosen. I am God's elect. I am the one who God called for this mission. I am the one who has been chosen for such a time as this. What time is that? I always say the current moment, right where you stand. Where you are breathing, how you are breathing is where God chose to use you and how God chose to use you. So please, in everything you do, remember the promise of God and remember that you are the chosen one. And I pray that
Thank you for watching the message, but I want to make sure that you're connected beyond the message. Visit our website or stay connected to all of our social media sites so that you can find different ways to get plugged in. I would love to meet you on Sundays at 1 p.m. or our first Tuesdays for our Impact Night. Be sure to like and subscribe and even share this channel so that we can continue to reach people. If you would like to help us even reach people further, please click the Give Now button when you visit our website. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.